I'm mad at you. It's like, take care of you folks, right? Engage voters are voting voters. And when there's a committee hearing, and there's 300 people, or the 1312, there's 800 people that sign up. It's like, all right, well, everybody is only going to get 3 minutes, or probably 2 minutes, if that. And it had an effect. Now Jared Polis still signed it, but he waited until close of business on Friday during the summer.
So he could run away.
Yeah. I had a question about 1312. They did amendments that day that they were listening to people speak, and we were there till about 11 o'clock, and I said, I'm going home, I gotta work the next day. But I wanna know, if they did the amendments, why didn't it go back to the House? Why did they pass it right there and then?
Because they don't care. They don't.
But is that the process?
It is the process, and we propose that usually on a lot of the bills, and say, look, you just, like, if it's a one-page, if it's more than a one-page amendment, you're supposed to have at least a day in order to review this one-page amendment, in this 30-page bill, in the stack of, like, this here, that's 30 bills. We'll do that in a morning. And most of them don't get any scrutiny. If you look at the numbers, each bill maybe gets like an average of, I'd say, 1 minute per page.
I think it's a strategy to not delay the passing of the bill.
Oh, it is. Their idea, they'll tell us, we're talking, it's like, we're only here because you guys keep talking about these bills. They're just gonna rubber stamp. It goes in, it goes to committee rubber stamps the ones that they've already approved, more or less. Those bills go to the House for the second reading, and the second reading is basically, they want to be a rubber stamp. They would go through 50 bills in a day. And so the idea, so we'll present the amendments, like on the AI bill, an AI traffic camera bill. That was last year. Found this part and it said, the government will only keep the data for 3 years. Well, above that, it said that the county could sell the data. I said, well, if you sold the data, now it exists forever. And that's what these giant data centers are for, is to keep this data forever. So they said, well, clearly this is a mistake. It got in the bill by accident. So, all right, let's make this not a profit-driven thing, that you cannot sell the data to private companies to do who knows what, with traffic cameras all over, because and then they fight it and they go, oh no, we've got to keep that in there because it would change the nature of the bill. Okay, so now the nature of the bill has not gone from, it's not about law enforcement. The bill is now about making money and then data collection of people. And they're running and I'm dealing with one on camps right now, which if you've seen that and how they use these bills on summer camps, they're requiring these summer camps to have co-sex bunk shower and so and why would they do that? Why would the people that are so worried about unplanned pregnancies encourage teenage boys and girls to sleep in the same facility? Why would they do that? What's that? The data retention bill did pass. Yeah. And they all pass, and so we know, but anyways, people come and they'll say to me, like, why should I come up to this state? Why should I come up to the Capitol? Because they've already made up their mind. And largely that's true. And then I said, well, why would I go to the podium if they've already made up their mind? Because I'm not gonna change their mind either. And so I think it does, but there was one bill late in the session, it was a Lucan's bill, and it was something with the Boy Scouts or something like that, and she asked, I think she asked Brandy and said, is this what's gonna happen to my bill? And Brandy's like, oh yeah, we're ready to blow that thing up. And Lucan's just like, well, I'm not even gonna bring it. So it makes a big difference when, and I've seen other ones, there was another education bill, like so many hundred people had signed up to testify. that they just can't get through. So they keep track of the political fallout, and they will pass even more if people aren't paying attention. And it's the time that you have to speak truth. You know, you have to, faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes by speaking. So you have to, these people, I guarantee you, in their echo chamber, they are not gonna hear anything even, I mean, you talk to them, and it's like, wow, where did that information come from? That is so far outside of truth. So they're not gonna hear truth in their own circles. They can't even figure out their own. So, I mean, think about it if you get more complicated than that.
On 1312, because we're up there, you see a little longer than I do. But I know that as amended, because they stripped out that one paragraph about if the kids come home and they mentioned transgender, you know, affirm it, then the state will take that away. But we debated that in RSF because some people thought that some of the way it was left was actually worse than the way that they amended it. What,
Yeah, it's quite confusing still, but that one, I think is, I think 1309 and 1312 are also about very different things than just trans. I think 1312 is about stripping parental custody in general. And then it's wrapped in this, you know, this emotive book, with this emotive bait of, you know, compassion. And they're very wrapped up in anything compassionate, and they're convinced that this is their, civil rights moment. I've heard that several times. Well, this is our civil rights moment, you know, to make them, you know, to put them into history. I like and then 1309, I think, is really just to bankrupt all the insurance companies, along with 183. You know, that requiring that that's time to be paid for by the insurance companies. Unlimited plastic surgery being required, because what happens after you bankrupt everything? You're left with Kyle Brown, who apparently wants to do CDPHE, is what I'm told. You're left with him running a single payer healthcare. So there's a lot. So you know, the trans on 1312, apparently the trans community, Garcia was mad at the trans community, because the trans community is like, you need to stop. You're getting blamed for this child snatching bill. So I think the child snatching bill, I mean, that was Garcia, and that's the Marxists there. And then, but then they wrap it in this compassion, and then they, you know, then they pass it. And, you know, oh, you can't say anything bad about this. Yes.
Each bill comes with a fiscal note. Is there any effort made to find out how accurate that fiscal note is down the road? Or is that just a made-up number?
The old
Usually zero.
Yeah, a lot of times it's zero, which means it's it's like, well, if you're not even gonna do a program, why is it? Well, zero just means you're doing it as an unfunded mandate. So they'll just say, well, the state wants to do it, and of course, the state should be promoting the counties, and the county should be supporting the citizens, because, you know, literally and figuratively, the governor is the lowest office in the state. But yeah, fiscal notes, they try, I've talked to them, and they try to do it, but it also, it's what it costs the state. It's not what it costs the state. It's not what it doesn't include what it costs the people. It doesn't include what it costs the municipalities. It doesn't include, like, one of the bills, I think, I don't remember what it was a local bill. And for money saving, to save these businesses money, they need to go to this higher level of certification of energy stuff. And one LEED certified building said, look, it's going to cost us $7 million for retrofit. Well, there's 8,200 buildings, so if you use $7 million, that's $58 billion out of the economy. The bill doesn't say it's going to cost $58 billion. It just says it's zero. It says maybe it's, you know, full-time equivalent people to go and, you know, make sure that this program is implemented. So, you know, this program only costs us $200,000, and, you know, it feeds their green religion, but it's going to cost them the most, $58 billion. And that doesn't, when you do the math for them, it's like talking to an angel. You know, you look at the eyes, but it's nothing.
So So there's no effort to really get a valid fiscal estimate
So,
of what this bill
there,
is.
there is, so,
That across the
here's the
state.
magic that happens, we'll get a bill, and every bill has a fiscal note. And the original bill will say it'll cost $12 million. And then all of a sudden, it'll go to committee, it'll come out, and then we'll get a new fiscal note, and it'll say zero. I'm like, where did the $12 million go is gonna cost? And they feel, and I honestly, I still haven't figured out how they're doing it. It's this like magic wand that they wave, that somehow, somewhere between committee and the floor, the money just goes away. It's not gonna cost anything. And I'm like, how does this happen? I wish you could do it on my bills, shoot, you know? But I would like to indulge everything. I would like to, I want to see everything. I think that people should know where every penny that they make and give to the state, unfortunately, where that goes. If they, I don't know if it's some sort of a deal they got with the people who make the fiscal notes, I'm not quite sure, but they shell game, right? What do you think?
Well,
Where's the bill? I don't know.
yeah, they're nonpartisan staff, and I think they do what they're, in their constraints, and you know, if they come up with a big fiscal note, then, you know, they'll go back, like for our bills, they're usually waiting until like I've got my fiscal notes, it's usually like the day that it's in committee, right? It's like, oh, by the way, this is gonna have a fiscal note, and the Democrats are like, well, if it has a fiscal note, we're gonna kill it. So that's an excuse, so it shows up on the day of. So our bills are killed by a fiscal note in committee, their bills, you know, if it has a fiscal note, they're like, oh, you know, they're just, it's completely jacked up with it. Well, I know that you're gonna continue working on this, and stupid word, stakeholder, just mean, and they'll just keep, you know, it's like, we'll just expect you to keep it. So we know your bill's not actually done, and it's not ready, but we're gonna send it to the floor to be rubber stamped, to get rubber stamped by the Senate. And then they'll change it, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna change it so it's a zero fiscal note by, basically usually making it an unfunded mandate, and just sending the bill down to the counties, because, I mean, you're okay with it, right? If you pay the county to do this program as opposed to the state. So they don't have any, so they're, you know, so that's why they have the, you know, then they have the fees, and then they make it enterprise. And so when they do that, they'll say, well, it won't cost us, we'll actually make money from this. I said, well, you're making money from this, taking more money from the citizens. Doesn't phase them at all, they'll just make an enterprise. The Tabor allows enterprises, and then, so they can charge a fee, and that fee then.
What I'm hearing is the legislature has basically no idea what a bill is going to cost.
That's because the majority doesn't care what the bill is going to cost. So,
No, I completely agree with you, Jeff. They really don't, like, when they put a bill in, they have no idea. It's not until we get the fiscal note that they'll come back with, oh yeah, it's, you know, $12 million, you know, and it's like, oh, and some people you think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't propose that bill because it's gonna cost so much money to the people of Colorado. No, they just shove it through anyways, they do a shell game, and by the time they're done, the fiscal note now says zero, and then they put this grants, donations, and all this other stuff on there, which is there is no such thing, that's just a fluffy word for saying, we don't know when money's gonna come from, but we wanna pass the bill anyways, and we'll just figure it out later. Who said that, we'll know what's in the bill after.
That's Pelosi.
That was the healthcare bill.
and as outrageous as that sounds, I mean, that's basically most of the bills.
Yeah.
So, and then the grants and donations clause is, they'll say, well, we don't have the money, we're just gonna pay for it with rich grants and donations. We're just gonna pay for it that way. Well, then why do you need a program for it? Like some of the programs, like, why do you need a program for it if you're gonna get all of your funding from outside the government? Well, the reason they do this, it puts it in the line, puts it in a line item, and then when the grants and donations don't come in, then next year it's in the budget, and it's like, oh, well, this is something that we need to fund, and then they'll just fund it in subsequent years, and then all of a sudden, we're $1.5 billion in the hole, and then they'll take, like one of the bills this year, the supplemental, was just raking in all of the cash funds that, you know, from, it's like, oh, well, you know, we haven't spent the money on the program that we told local taxpayers we're gonna spend the money on, so we'll just rake that into, you know, these priority programs that we have. So, and then we'll pay it back next year when we know that there will be less money.
So you're basically a shell game.
That's what I'm saying, it's a shell game. It
Not
totally is.
basically, it is a
It is
shell
a
game.
shell game, and that's the thing, is like, for me, being a freshman, I'm going in with fresh eyes, you know, not that Ken doesn't have fresh eyes. But, but I'm going in with a different, different set of eyes.
Oh, she comes in and he's like, how did you?
I get so angry. Like, I was 21 years in the military, I've never been this angry before. But it's just the lack of common sense and the evil and the thought process of theirs that we're just all stupid. We're not, but they think we are. And I'm like, and I tell them, like, and whenever, if you ever watch the Colorado channel on YouTube, it's called Colorado Channel, you can watch this down in a while, and you'll see it's only just Republicans, because the Democrats have been told to stay put. Don't talk, don't say anything, because they already know how they're gonna vote anyways, because they've been told how to vote. It's just the Republicans down there 95% of the time going, this is bad, this is that. I really don't even look at the representatives anymore. I look directly at the camera, because I need to speak to the people, because they're the ones, you know, that are gonna make the change. They're the ones who need to see and hear and know what's going on in there, because I'm telling you, it is messed up. I have never seen a more dysfunctional process in my life. And just every day, I'm just like, oh my goodness gracious, how are we even functioning as a state? And actually, honestly, we're not.
Well, I just, it's interesting to hear you admit that the fiscal review never materializes, but could you expand the discussion into the constitutional review? Like, it seems that
There is none.
003, right, the only hope after 003 was passed and our gun rights were taken away is that, oh, well, it was all unconstitutional. And is there ever a challenge to constitutional?
Max Brooks had a really good idea, and that was to ask for a constitutional review of the Supreme Court, like, hey, you've got people that are already lined up that are gonna sue, which is gonna cost the state hundreds of thousands and not millions, and it's gonna cost other Coloradans millions, you know, so let's have a constitutional review of this beforehand, and so presented it, and then it had to go to the Senate, or whatever reason, how that did, and of course they voted it down. It's like, wouldn't you wanna know if this, you know, so they don't wanna know in advance whether, and the way it works is, everything is, so everybody thinks that, it's like, well, we'll send our representatives up there, they take an oath to the Constitution that they haven't read, and they don't respect, you know, well over 50% of them. And they think that's all they need to do, and then, so, but the way the bills work is explained to me, this is one of those things when you're new there, it's just like, you know, just screw yourself into the ceiling like Rebecca. And,
I can't imagine Rebecca doing that.
it's sincere, it's a beautiful.
Oh, I can.
But the constitutionality is assumed. So they assume that anything that we pass as representatives of the people of Colorado, even though the majority does not represent the majority, like most Democrats, when you tell them what they're passing, like, they're just incredulous, like, no, that's impossible. And I'm there, I'm there, so when somebody says that can't happen, it's like, I'm right there with you, because I believe it can't happen. But I'm there watching it happen, not being able to believe that it happens. But that's the assumption, is that it's constitutional until or unless somebody does in a lawsuit for $50,000 to $100,000 is able to get it thrown out, which of course, when you do 700 bills a year, nobody can afford to challenge all of that.
A lot of the bills are not constitutional.
The executive actually took $4 million out of our infrastructure that we were supposed to use for infrastructure, that they said, hey, this money's gonna go for infrastructure, now it's going to, for Jared Polis to defend lawsuits. So Tim in the back, sorry.
At Falcon High School this last week, they had the Supreme Court went out and they actually conducted business in the high school. It was actually really cool. All the students got to watch what was going on, but in discussion with the Supreme Court justices, it came out that the governor can ask for a constitutional assessment anytime he wants. And you guys can. The problem with you guys doing it is, it has to pass a vote of the House and the Senate, and the Democrats are gonna vote no on all of that. So the only way to get through that is what Rebecca said, which is to wait for it to get passed, have it go all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, or here in Colorado, but, and I throw this number out, I got it, I can't tell you how accurate it is, but I'll tell you it's pretty close. Roughly $450 million has been spent by the state of Colorado defending itself from Republicans that are challenging unconstitutional laws. So part of the reason that the Democrats pass unconstitutional laws is a strategy to bleed money out of the Republican coffers, because they have to, like what Rebecca said, 704 bills, and if it costs you $1 million per bill, bad bill, you're out $704 million. Right now it's at 450, but they're doing stupid things, but they're not really stupid. It's a strategy. Just one small piece of a bigger overarching strategy that we are all victims of.
Yeah, so we're paying for it twice. We're paying to fight these bills, and then we're paying to defend these bills with
Yep.
taxpayer dollars.
And you're assuming they know what's in the Constitution. And I'm not, I don't think any of them have even read the Constitution. I got gavelled down. My First Amendment right was taken from me, being gavelled down, arguing for the First Amendment right of the people of Colorado. I have no idea making that up. For the right to petition, you know, they were trying to pass, they passed the bill, right? It passed, right? The $1,500 to read a petition.
Oh, yeah, they
Yeah,
wanna make
so fun.
petitioning harder because they recognize that the petition process is a very useful tool for the Republic. It's one of the few remaining tools that the Republican Party has in this state, and, you know, the Republican Party needs to figure out that it's a tool that we can use. And, you know, Candace has kind of mastered this, I've got 3 really good ones through that process, but it's just impossible. They're basically tying the noose where, because in the worship of state, they have no use for you to have any individual rights. They have no use for that whatsoever.
Okay, you're talking about petitioning the bill, not petitioning on.
Yeah, petitioning,
Yeah, not
so
petitioning, or petitioning period.
Citizens ballot.
citizens ballot.
Your First Amendment right includes your ability to petition the government of your grievances. And that is a right, and now they're charging you, so if you don't have the money, you know, think about some of these smaller organizations, they don't pay $1,500, it's up to you, you know. So,
Just to get the process.
and that's just to get the process going, so, you know, like things like Prop HH, or, you know, things like that, to get petitioning, something you can put on the ballot, any of that stuff, they're not gonna charge you money for that, and it's free, so now you have to pay to exercise your First Amendment right, but if you can't pay, you don't get to exercise your First Amendment right. And that's just wrong, you know, and they don't want you to know your rights. They, you know, look at the schools, you know, they've gotten so far removed from teaching that kind of stuff to our kids, because the more knowledge you have, the more power you have, and the more you can stand up for yourselves. And honestly, I don't see that they want that to happen. I really don't think they want that to happen, because the weaker people are people that they can, you know, go rule over. We don't need rule.
We call
We
it
are our own
people.
selves, our freedom. Yeah, between safety and petition clause.
Oh, yeah, the safety and petition, but they'll put a safety clause on it, which means that it does, and nobody, you know, I think Rose Puglisi is the only one who has ever really led a challenge on an actual bill. But they'll still put a safety clause on it, which is just kind of thumbing their nose and saying, we're not even gonna let you consider challenging this. And then on the bill that Rebecca was just talking about, the Secretary of State having these things on for petitions that everybody has to go, and they have to update, like, are they, you know, where are they on their petition process? Like, you know, 25%, 50%, 75%, so they have to have all these things, which is just more reason to go back so now you've got petitions that are all over the state. You've gotta have this somebody's gotta be continuing to do this process. So, it also helps probably the cannabis companies, but the bill, when you go through the bill, it was like, well, basically this process is useless, it will just cost you $1,500, and we need to add more people to the Secretary of State. So it's like, so there was like no value to it whatsoever, other than so the entire purpose, the whole purpose of the bill was just to make the process more difficult. But we really, really, really need to use it, and I'm just saying this publicly in front of Candace.
To put this in perspective, across the country, we are only one of 7 states that have the Citizens Ballot Initiative. That shows how conservative Colorado really was at the beginning. That they allow us as mere citizens to potentially change the Constitution.
And they want it gone,
And they want it gone.
which means we should read it.
Me, Bowser? Nicholas Bowser, Colorado Hispanic Republicans. And I love what you said. They treat us like we're stupid. And one of the things I couldn't help thinking about was, I imagine that all those bills out there with all those words in there are in English. Now, we were told in our community that we don't understand English enough to get voter IDs. We just don't understand enough. So I can't imagine how our community is supposed to follow all these laws and all the other inherent contradictions that you guys talk about. And it feels like we're not going to believe those lies anymore. So it begs the question, what do you feel about your Democrat colleagues in terms of their entitlement to Hispanic, African American, and other minority votes? And what do you think will happen when, because of their actions like you described, they're going to start losing those votes?
It's gonna take educating that community. I talked to, pro-life, and, she said, she'll go into these groups, Spanish speaking, and they're like, oh, Lorena Garcia, we love her, and she's got that Garcia name, and she's awesome. And then she starts telling them, like, no, she's for, unlimited feticide, she's for transing your kids, she's for, this, and this, and then they're like, what? Basically,
Against
like,
our values.
yeah, how can somebody with a name like Garcia be for these things? But it's gonna take educating the people to do that. So, I think doing town halls, especially town halls that would require a translator would be.
That's a...
Sign me up. So if you can translate for me, then, we should do one, because I think people need to see that this is being done to them, not in the totality of government. This is being done to them every year. So this is cute, but I don't think she's gonna she's gonna have a whole wall will be insulated. She's doing an excellent job sequestering carbon and helping our.
Well, and,
So, Ken, you touched on something I think is so important, and I know Heidi Gonzalez is doing a great job with Rocky Mountain Boys, trying to get a conservative alternative, and Heidi Goldman with his Salem Radio. There's some other outlets, but do you guys know of any others that are reaching the masses? I mean, some are asleep, some don't wanna hear, some are like, don't bother me, I gotta go on vacation,
Yeah,
or I gotta go gambling, or whatever it is they do, right?
yeah.
Nothing but, don't get me involved, right? There's that group that are like, okay,
It's probably the majority of even,
it
and the
is.
great thing about Republicans is we don't look to the government to solve our problems.
No, we don't.
And the problem with Republicans is we don't look to the government to solve our problems. Which means nobody wants to get involved in government, which is the first qualification for being in government. Like, the fact, if you wake up in the morning and go, I wanna be there, it's like, you're with me. I don't wanna be, people are like, what made you wanna get into government? It's like, absolutely nothing. It was never on my bucket list. I went into engineering and aviation, that should tell you something. Single seat aviation, so politics is, still not on my list of things I would like to do in the history of ever. So everybody, I mean, we just, people are like, well, what do I need to do? It's like, well, first of all, you need to look down, because you're knee deep in the swamp. I don't care where you are, you're knee deep in the swamp, and it needs to be changed where you are. And, God bless you if you don't wanna be involved, because that's who we need. We need people with integrity, because I can tell you what, somebody sitting in one of those green seats that does nothing except vote properly is way better than any one of the Democrats that has got 10, 15 bills going hardcore in the wrong direction. So we don't need, we just need people to displace their people from the seats. We have darkness because we're not sending light.
And if I can mention something, some of the bills that you come here, not that I'm defending.
This is a temperature, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking.
In their defense, or not in their defense position, no matter, but for adults, but a lot of the bills that they are proposing, they don't even know what this says. An outside group has written these bills for them, and they said, hey, you can do this for me? And they're like, sure, and they take it, and you ask them the question, you read the bill, we go through it line by line, and I'm like, well, on page, 7, line, 12, it says this, what do you mean by that? And they stare at you blank in the face, like they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm like, it's your bill. The bill that you've got your name on it right here, they have no idea. So a lot of these bills, they're actually written by Planned Parenthood or, all the different organizations that are trying to push their agenda, and they're using the people who will just do it for them because it makes them, it falls along their political agenda. And they just do it, for me, I look at everything, and it's like, my ideas for my bills come from you guys. It comes from the people, it's like, people say, oh, this is going on, or that's going on, and then I start actually researching it, and I see if that's really what's going on, and not, and how, and that's where I get, like, the safe haven bill. That was something, a constituent of mine came to me, she said, this needs to change, this is something, so then I'm like, well, I got the bone now, so then I go and I say deep dive into it, and I realize it does need to change. We are finding babies in dumpsters. That's not good. So how can we fix this? Let's make things better, not make things worse. Like when we were campaigning, the number one things that we heard were affordability, parental rights, freedoms, my constitutional rights, the Second Amendment, all these things. It was never nose jobs and cheap jobs and the bill that we just had that was.
Well, it's 1309, and that's basically unlimited
That any.
plastic surgery for anybody in the state, just by moving here, even if, I suppose they could just be, because they only have to be here for 3 days to vote, or they don't have to be here for 3 days, so they can just show up and say they intend to be here, so. I mean, the list of surgeries is like $800,000. So that's first one.
Yes.
But they can't ask about anybody's status. They can't.
They can discriminate.
About anybody's. So I don't know.
So it's a transgender healthcare bill is how they propose it. It's like stating critical surgeries that they must have. And these surgeries include a nose job, boob jobs, skin tightening, no, I'm not kidding, orbital shaping or changing, facial shaping, chin shaping. And the most important one, that's gonna really save lives, is laser hair removal and electrolysis. And it's gonna be on our dime. So if they're forcing insurance companies to pay for it, and if insurance companies can pay for it, that's who's gonna be paying for it,
And this is what Jared Polis says, is helping people afford medical in Colorado. So it's helping very small people, really. It's like with Obamacare, they had to add everything, they had to add all of the the conditions and all that, and they couldn't, and so all of a sudden, the cost of insurance skyrocketed. And, we're supposed to make, the misnamed Affordable Health Care Act caused prices to go up, caused people to lose their insurance. and then this will do the exact same thing, when you point that out, like, then they're like, oh, no, it's like, they just avoid eye contact, basically,
Yeah.
and they just don't have the conversation, because that's the ideology. And if anybody wants to really, a good book, a friend who's really engaged in this, she came to our house and she hands me this book, it's like, and it's a lifelong Democrat, Kara Dansky, it's called The Reckoning. And, I was assigned that book, it's like, okay, I'll get to that. So I started reading it, and it's one of those books that at every chapter, you're like, how much worse could it get? And then the next chapter shows, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse, and then, the book finally ends, and it's just like, you realize that it's only the tip of the iceberg, that it is, there are billions of dollars behind mutilating these kids, the surgical, the pharmacological, so in the name of compassion, they are starting in pre-K, teaching these kids that maybe they're born in the wrong body, and then maybe they need different pronouns. And then by the time they get someplace in school, they're so confused that, while there's 90-some different genders, at least according to Wikipedia, most of which are spiritual in nature, so now they've added 2 S to it, so that's 2 spirit. So most of them are spiritual in nature, and then it seems like the only solution to either one of them is to cut something off or sew something on. So,
Instead of actually helping the mental care, letting people deal, I remember, people were really great with yourself back in the 80s, we were, it was all about body and self-positivity, right? And then we've gone from that to where you're wrong, you're born wrong, I don't believe that at all. I mean, we got beautiful kids, and they're perfect exactly how they are. I mean, I look at the little ones that even the Democrats bringing their children in, and I'm looking at them going, they're perfect. They're perfect. And I was a tomboy. I had overalls. I climbed trees. But had I been a child, how I was then, now they would have had me convinced that I was all kinds. I needed to change everything about myself. And for me, God makes us, and most of us, and He makes us perfect how He wants us to be, and instead of promoting people cutting off their body parts, how about you promote how great those body parts are? We're perfect in every way. I got a few things here and there, but you know what? That's how I am. Either take me or leave me. I'm not perfect, and neither is we're imperfectly perfect. That's what we are, imperfectly perfect. And we just have to start promoting that to our children.
That's right.
one of the gavels, they haven't gaveled, last year, when I started keeping track, I was gaveled 19 pages worth, so somewhere before. So they didn't do that this year, but, one of the gavels.
Yeah, it should be a poem on women's book.
What's that?
It should be a column on.
Should be a column. Well, I just use it for, thanks for getting everybody's attention for me, so now we're just gonna move on. But one of the Democrats had her daughter there with her, and she walks down in front, and I said, oh, what a beautiful tiny human. And that was okay, and so I said, thank you for choosing life. And so anything affirming, anything life affirming, they are. And I refer to, I think it's accurate, I refer to them as a death cult. And I kept referring to it as a death cult. And, one of the Democrats came over afterwards, very shaken, and she's like, what do you say death cult? What do you mean? Who are you talking about? I'm talking about you. The whole caucus is a death cult. We're talking about death. We're talking about killing unborn persons. And they get into this whole thing of denying personhood. And so I went in, I spoke about that, a lot, because, one of the things on their bill this year was how they have stopped personhood initiatives for the unborn. And the reason they stopped personhood, now, if you look back, the issue with that is you've never been granted personhood. If you go to the point of being granted personhood by the government, you're really in trouble. Because they don't, so you've never been granted personhood. They don't, your personhood has been recognized, but it has never been, so you don't get personhood from the government, you get personhood from being created in the image of God. Our rights are derived from the self-evident truths that, that we are created, so. And then, if you look at definitions, I spent a lot of time on this, these rabbit trails, but, person is human plus the soul. Well, if you don't have a soul, then it's just human. So even by our law, it's consistent, that the unborn human is just a preborn person. But they want to deny personhood because it is personhood, then no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. And so by denying personhood, they deny that then they can be denied life without due process of the law. And also by denying personhood, they are able to, then it's the, 6 or 14, getting confused, sorry, I have lots of constitutions, but sometimes I get confused, but that you have a trial by jury, and then you also have, no person shall be subject to, cruel and unusual punishment. So this goes, when they've had bills like last year, presented the bill to, they say, like, if you're gonna kill this kid, at least anesthetize them, because they do feel pain, they're feeling pain. Well, they can't allow that, because if they allow for the anesthetizing of a preborn person, in order to, then that would be an acknowledgement of personhood. And so they would rather that child be brutally ripped limb from limb, chemically burned, sanguinated, starved, than they would have acknowledgement of personhood. And Kim's dad had a set of books by Lincoln, and I found a quote in there that I haven't found online, but it's in an actual book, so I think it's legit. And that is, it goes through, it's like, if they can make things out of you, because that's what, he explains, I read in a law book once, that a slave is not a person, it is a human that's not a person, but a thing. And if they can make things out of the slaves, how long before they make things out of you? Right. And it's like, and it goes to the same point. If they're going to make things out of the preborn humans, they don't consider you any more of a person than the preborn humans. Because what's the logical path that gets you there? Is it the process of being born? Well, or is it the process of proximity? Is it, is it breathing? Is it not breathing? There's a whole host of other problems that are created by denying personhood. And if the state can deny or ignore, even in a sense worse, ignore the personhood of the preborn, why would they acknowledge the personhood of anybody?
It's the way around it. So there was a question, you had a question for me?
Yeah, so earlier you had mentioned getting involved with government. If someone in this room said they want to get involved with government, what would be the best path to get a seat?
So to run for office, you mean?
Yeah.
Or to like House, Senate, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Come see me.
Well, we have the caucus assembly process.
Yeah, but you get involved with the party, like, you go to the office, and you
What's
kind
that?
of get to know people first, and then try to find out, as much information, because you don't want to come in out of the woodwork and be like, who's this guy? And you want to show that you're involved and that you care. And
Yeah,
you
talk to
think-
Jim.
And
He's
so-
this guy.
Yeah,
This guy. But you can show up at caucus.
Yeah,
And,
you can do it right there.
well, caucus is where you would pick the delegates, and
Or
then
the
at assembly, you could show up. But of course, you'd want to work in advance. I would, talk to Brad, he knows the whole system, especially for this area. You know,
Yeah,
if you wanna run against me, then just be more constitutional.
Really long.
But you could be doing precinct leader, you could help with campaigns, you know, just try to, I just want people to get involved. It just seems like in November, everyone casts their ballots, and then they're done for the day, or for the year, for the next 2 years, and then they're like, there's another election. That's not enough anymore. That is, and I'm not sure it ever was enough, but people just think that's where it ends. The battle goes on. The war does not end, because you you voted in November. And we have to realize that this is something we've let slip through our fingers, and we have to take it back. And so the only way to do that is actually getting involved, getting off your couches, getting off your behinds, and getting out there and doing something. Because if you don't do something, they will, and they are, and it's not what we want. So we need to start outdoing their do.
I got involved, I was asked to be a bonus, run for bonus member. I had no idea what bonus member was. Then I was elected a bonus member, and then after a year of that, I almost knew what a bonus member was. Then I was asked to run for a house seat. So, really, the most important roles are these neighborhood roles, because that's where we need to reach people, because, Rebecca's right. I mean, I kind of lapsed towards hoping that somebody runs for my seat, but, the real power, and the real power the way it should be, is in the individuals. It's in the individual, and that's where, this is a numbers game. 3 votes, because, well, young Republicans hit Rebecca's district hard.
Yeah.
And my district, was not party, that was Denise running, getting everybody working, primarily. And then Tanya had knocked on.
Kathy Horsky.
In House District 22. What's that?
Kathy Horsky.
And Kathy Horsky.
She was huge in your, huge.
Kathy solves all the problems.
I do have a
So
question.
people email me and they ask for help.
No, I know, right? I've been raising my hand forever.
But we need to have what we need to do is we need to ultimately reach the neighborhoods. We need to have people, we need to have
That's
people
my issue.
understanding
What's that?
and watching it, being educated. And going,
Yep.
I can just get involved at the grassroots level. I could go and be, even just like watching county commission meetings is a great way to get involved, because, or these, a thing I'm dealing with the camps right now. They just passed rules, and they're like, oh, nobody's here to protest the rules, so I guess we'll just pass them as is. What was that rule? Oh, that was, you will have co-sex bathroom and shower facility. That was the rule, so we have all of the stuff that happens, just the sheer volume of government, because we don't have enough eyes. So, I mean, any place that you're willing to get involved, we can find a place.
Perfect. I think the information is, so many people in a state, they just are oblivious to everything.
Oh, yeah.
And, I don't know if it's by design or if it's just, people are busy, but getting involved is huge.
Yeah, you pay $130 a year in compelled labor taxes, is where you're just trying to, part of wanting to raise your taxes all the time is to make you keep your nose to the grindstone, you never look down. And then anytime something happens, it's like, well, I'm too busy to be involved, I'm too busy serving the government. It's like, well, it's gonna get worse if you don't get busy to not serve the government. Oh, I thought you were.
Are you still doing your newsletter?
I don't know, because I don't know what I'll have to do. I talked to Podcaster yesterday, he wants to do kind of like kind of get into some of the bills, deep dive.
Can you just ask me, I have your email addresses, is there anybody who does not want to get your newsletter? Because we don't do it in the interim, it will go up again in January.
Yeah, so if you're in the room and you signed up, put your email, thank you. But if you don't want to get the newsletter,
Or texts.
or texts, yes, texts are a great way. I'm trying to do that better as well. So I do have people who are much better than me, and I'm trying to
email address, and send it out to you. Actually, what I started doing is printing them out myself and then going, you know, like 30, 40 of them at a time and just hitting different houses and just giving them whoever they are, just putting it out there, because sometimes people, you know, they don't check their email or it goes to spam or whatever. But for me, it's about, you know, reaching out to everyone however I can. I can't afford to do thousands of them, but, you know, if I can do a little bit at a time and let people know, and even like during, when we, I can't remember which bill it was, but one of the bills, I went out and, I don't remember the number of it, but I went out door knocking, because it was, I had a hard time deciding. And I'm like, oh, I see it this way, I see it that way, and it was a very, you know, I'm like, I need to know what you guys want. Because in the end, you know, it's not Rebecca Keltie, you know, my way or the highway, it's your guys' way or the highway, right? So I just went out door knocking, stopped people on the side of the street, asked them their opinion on it, you know, what would you want done, what would you want done? But it was the one, the internet one, the internet bill. And I'm like, do you want to say yes, or do you want me to say no? And I thought for sure, they were gonna say, oh, we'll just say yes because of this, it's protected, blah, blah. Yeah, they saw between the lines what this bill was doing, and I don't even know, I didn't ask their affiliation, I have no idea if they were Democrat, Republican, unaffiliated, I have no idea, I didn't care, I just wanna know what they wanted me to do. And every single one of them told me to vote no. I'm like, whoo, that was solved, that was take the stress off of me, you know, and we need to know that kind of stuff, you know, and that's what the testify, when you go and testify, is really important, because then we also hear what the people want. When you email, we see what the people want, you know, and for me, that's what we're up there for. We're not up there to be your voice and your face in the face of the people. Ken's face better than my face, but I'm just saying. Yeah, so, I mean, and also this whole, maybe you can help with this, Ken, the whole, when people come up to testify in committee, I have a lot of people saying, oh, I'm just gonna submit my written testimony, I'm gonna submit, I can tell you this right now, I've been through tons and tons of hours of committee meetings, I have yet to see a single written testimony. Like, they don't give them to you, we don't see them, it's not put out anywhere, I mean, I have no idea, I know it gets entered somewhere
It goes into a
later,
folder for that committee for that day.
but we don't see it.
And they'll just say, and it's better than nothing, but on the committee here, some people will go, what's the point? They only give me 3 minutes. Like, well, you're only required to do 3 minutes. You're only, look at that as a positive. You can just say, I mean, even if you just say, you know, hi, I'm Ken, this bill is stupid, you should not vote for it. Okay, fine,
Yeah.
you know, but you have, you know, you can say a lot in 3 minutes, and especially if you, Donald was able to stick around, but, you know, testifying, you know, Tanya as well, and sorry, I'm not gonna start naming, I shouldn't start naming names, we can all, you know, just showing up and doing testimony, they go through some research, look at the bill, you know, you can't do all the bills, obviously, but, you know, like, we should have at least, you know, 1 million Republicans, and then we have a bunch that are probably more right-leaning than, you know, and if you looked at every bill, and if everybody took on like one bill, you would have hundreds of people in opposition to each of these bills. So it's like, if we can get everybody to do a little bit, if we can get everybody to do 3 minutes on a bill, then we're not reliant on everybody. And also, one thing that I tried last year, I looked at it, maybe because I'm a math nerd, but a little bit, but, is like with these newsletters, you can also, the best thing going is word of mouth, because, you know, nobody trusts the media. I mean, nobody trusts the media anymore, but we believe everything we trust, right? So, but like, say I write a newsletter, I was told it was too many words. Sorry. But, you know, it's covering like maybe 5 bills of that time and trying to do, but anyways, you might just take it and send it to all of your friends and just pick one bill and just go. You don't have to read the whole thing. Halfway down is 1312. I can't believe this is going on. This is what they're up against. And you can send it to you, because when I looked at it, when we're looking at the petition process, say, you know, I send it out, like I can send a text, like I did a radio spot with Chaim, so that it would go out, and then they gave me the copy, so I could send it out for other than that, and it's like, so we wanted to reach all of the Republicans in Colorado, right? So I sent it to, like, everybody in my contact list that's in Colorado, and just said, you know, if I send it to 10 people, and those 10 people send it to 10 people, et cetera, 5 or 6 jumps, you have reached everybody in Colorado with that message. And I don't think, you know, I don't think it probably got past the first jump, because we've gone down this road of saying, well, it's not polite to talk about politics. It's not polite to talk about religion. So, you know, we need to get over that, you know, petitions, like, we could have a serious impact on legislation with petitions. We need to stop having to chase Republicans down to get signatures. You know, we should be able to, I should send out a text, go, you need to be at the firehouse this time, and everybody goes, yes, I'm gonna do it. Do we do that as Republicans? No. We say, I think I need somebody to personally come and talk to me individually about this. And it's like, no, it's not gonna happen, but we could have a huge impact with that process, with the ballot initiative, getting them on the ballot and making sure, like my ballot initiative for parental rights, especially in light of 1312, adding one small line to the Constitution that says, you know, part of your, basically your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is the right to, have to look up the wording exactly, but that you have the right to raise your children. Well, the Democrats aren't gonna pass that, right? But we could get it on the ballot. And we should be, and a show of force would be to have, you know, I mean, you look at Candace should do a whole class on the ballot, you know, getting that, you know, she got 3 through the system to get onto the ballot, which I think there's a sign that above the door that says abandon all hope ye. Because they don't, you know, but then they die. Great ballot initiatives, but they die because you've got to send out petitions and you've got to beg Republicans to sign. It's like, that should be done in an afternoon. And that could be done with, I text 10 of you, if you text 10, if they text 10 individuals, boom, you would have the entire state covered in 6 jumps. And we could just say, go.
It's your duty. It's true.
I think your videos are better, because no one is checking the emails as much, but people are doom scrolling.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that, you know, the more content that comes out, then it gets listed, you know, sending it to people and saying, you should watch this, you should watch this, you should watch this, and just making that part of the day, you know, that this is going on. And so that, I mean, because that's the only purpose of the video, because again, the Democrats aren't going to change it, but we need to, and so this year is, you know, ultimate crazy. Next year, they're going to act like more conservatives because they want the church and conservatives to go back to sleep and go, oh, I guess we showed them, and it's like, no, they haven't changed, they just wait till off cycles.
Yep.
And we need to get more involved, just like you're saying, and do all this.
And not everyone can wear a uniform and fight for their country, go to war and fight for their country. But by getting involved locally, you're doing just that. You just a different type of uniform, but you're fighting for your state and your country by getting involved and actually taking up arms, I guess you'd say, with a pen and helping get these signatures done and petitions done and doing things here. So you might not have been able to wear a uniform and go to a foreign land, but you're wearing your uniform in your heart, fighting for your state right now. And that's what we need people to understand. Get engaged, it's your duty. This is your country, it's your state.
Yeah, the military fight all, defend enemies against enemies, foreign and domestic, and I can tell you there's plenty of domestic.
That's right.
So I've heard it many times that the Democrats say that it's our job to pass and make law, and it's the Republicans' job to litigate and make sure it's constitutional. What I can't understand in this entire government process, and I've never been able to understand, you supposedly have nonpartisan people that are writing the bills, and yet nothing is reflected or checked to see if it's constitutional. Before, those binders, there'd be less than half You wouldn't be there till 3 a.m. fighting if we did things from a constitutional perspective. So my question is, that I've never been able to understand, is there a path to that? How do we get there? Do we do a title board thing? Do we make a rule in a law that says that we have to hire constitutional experts who look at bills before they are even given to representatives to go and present to the House and the Senate?
Should, but again, everything is
Just use AI.
constitutional.
Have AI go through all the bills compared to the Constitution.
Right.
Well, you're right, it would be less than.
It'd be done in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I know that.
But they won't pass, see, that's the thing, we put up great bills. I mean, between the 22 of us, we have like bills that, like Randy Bradley's bill about actually making sure people who, sexually molest children go to jail. Because right now they just get probation. So, but they kill it. I could present a bill that says, that gives world peace. I mean, it doesn't matter, but they will, if they don't want it, it will not pass. So it's up to them, and there's only 22 of us, and I know that we fight the bills. We try to do amendments. We only get away with what they allow us to get away with.
So you don't see a path?
No,
Well, there is a path, and that's
we can
that
do it,
the hearts in those seats need to be changed.
Yeah.
And they need to be, the heart needs to be changed, and the heart, that heart needs to be changed. That needs, and we've given up, because yes, the election system is incredibly compromised, and the only way to overwhelm the fraud in that system is with sheer numbers. And so we have to get the sheer numbers, and we have to convince the people that, yeah, it is, I just got an email or contact from somebody who's like, why aren't you challenging the elections? Like, why am I not challenging the election system? I sat right across from Jenna Griswold and challenged the election system. But we have to have the sheer numbers, so the path forward is the sheer numbers, and that path forward is really, the church, not specific churches, but the body, the church. I mean, if we just look at the numbers, I remember after the first caucus and assembly, I walked into my church and like, this church could own caucus and assembly for El Paso County. Done. And we could make sure that we have, but, I'll talk to Christians and they're like, well, I'm just, I don't wanna say just, because this is a spiritual battle, but like, they don't wanna get involved. And churches encourage people not to get involved because politics is icky. And it is icky. I mean, it's the root word of politics, ick, right? That they, and so they don't wanna get involved, and it's like, we could solve all of these problems if you just religiously got out of the pew and went and voted. We could solve the majority of these
That's
problems.
their way of fighting the devil.
What's that?
Vote.
Yeah,
That's
not
your
just
way
vote,
of-
but be involved.
To,
And
fight the devil.
I see, when I read, it's, this was another conversation, I see more go and do than watch and wait. And yes, there's, waiting on the Lord, but that usually has to do with going and doing also, Vicki, a couple weeks ago recommended, said, I think you should read, about Gideon. I'll listen to that, it's like, Gideon went out with, 300. Whittles his army down to 300 because it was useless that way. And then sent him out against this massive army with what you would normally take to battle, a pitcher, a torch, and a trumpet. That's what you go to battle with, but he had to go. We're going, and all we can do is use his words, but we have to go. And so the people that are in the church need to go. And, is it gonna be uncomfortable? It's uncomfortable every day. It's an uncomfortable drive, it's an uncomfortable drive home, it's an uncomfortable, everything is uncomfortable.
April 15th is uncomfortable.
April 15th is uncomfortable.
So my name is James Bolas. I was a previous candidate for House District 18. And in Colorado, we have what's called the caucus state. And the caucus state is basically a pre-built army, but we don't use it as Republicans, right? And so as Republicans, and you were talking about how you run, right? We need to educate our Republicans on what is a caucus. Most people don't know what a caucus is. Show up at your caucus. When people say that my vote doesn't count and my voice is never heard, your voice is heard and your vote does count at a caucus, right? You can become a precinct leader. We need to ask our precinct leaders to do a little bit more, right? Let's not just run a caucus meeting, but organize as an army. Talk to your neighbors, right? Get some of your neighbors to get engaged and be volunteers. We need you out walking, we need you out talking, we need you out texting, we need you out emailing, we need you out making phone calls, right? Some of the precinct leaders can't walk, they have a hard time, so organize a few of the people in your neighborhood, right? Every summer, get out there and walk and talk to the neighbors on your block, and maybe next week go talk to the next block. Find out who the independents are, find out who the people that didn't vote. As a candidate, I didn't do so well because I lost, but I learned a whole lot about what in the heck we did wrong, right? Rebecca had a lot of people out helping her, and that was really what put her over the top, right? And so in House District 18 and in House District 17, we need to do the same things. I believe is Laurel Ann, so Laurel Ann has so she has a meeting every month with the district.
With the division leaders.
Division leaders, and then quarterly with the precinct leaders.
We can try to get them more involved, it's still more.
So we need to do more of those types of things to get those things. As a business guy, I lost my election, but you know what? When I do something wrong in business, I try to correct it. What did I do wrong and what can we do better? Those are the things, we have a pre-built army in Colorado, but we need to educate the voters, right? Nobody knows what a caucus is.
Yeah, we need more Republican barbecue.
And no one knows what a
Yeah.
caucus is, or where a caucus is.
Right, so those are the things that we need to do as leaders, and just get out and do those things. So I appreciate you guys, your ears.
And people just need to, if you see a need, I think, one of the best things, like, one of the great things about volunteers is they're volunteering, and then, but the downside is when you start telling volunteers what to do, that's how they become unvolunteers. But, we have groups of volunteers, and they're all trying to tell each other, sometimes it feels like they're trying to tell the other ones what to do, and then they become volunteers. It's like, if you've got an idea, just go do it. Just go do it, and, make that happen, and use that free market of ideas to, like, I think we ought to do more phone calls. Great, do more phone calls. I think we ought to do more barbecue. Great, do more barbecues. Let's see what works. Let's not have, and then we can support that where everybody's using their own strengths. So we just need more growth.
And I know it's almost 12, but, I would like to mention a couple good things that
Yeah.
happened, if that's okay.
It ended. Session
yeah.
ended. Now, the mischief, however, continues. The mischief continues with rulemaking. There was rulemaking yesterday on pre-K, and those pre-K rules, I can guarantee you from looking at this with the camp stuff, that those pre-K rules are 100% with the gender ideology. The bathrooms are co-sex.
So, one of the bills, I know, and you can mention yours as well, but like, I had, one bill that went through, and, it was, a Military Children with Disabilities Act, and what that did, it allowed actual kids who have disabilities, military families, we're having a hard time getting, pre-enrolled or advanced enrolled in Colorado. The regular kids, they had no problem, but when they had disabilities, there was a huge delay, and they were not able to get enrolled and get their education, because they gotta wait and all that kind of stuff. So we did pass a law saying, disabled military kids can pre-enroll as soon as the parents get orders. If any of you have been in the military, you get orders anywhere between, 2 to 6 months in advance, you know where you're going, so these are kids set up. And then, the thing I think I'm most proud proud of is, in the history of Colorado, every session, they do a military tribute or a resolution. And every veteran or so kind of gets first pick of, you know, what war would they like to give tribute to, or make a resolution, and read the resolution, and give honor to. And they had the World War I, World War II, they had the Vietnam War, they had all of them, except for one. And in the history of Colorado, they had forgotten to do this war, which just so happened to be the forgotten war, which is the Korean War. So I asked them, I said, well, I'll do the Korean War. My dad was a Korean War veteran. And they stared at me. And they're like, I'm like, you know, the Korean War, I'll do that one. They had never in the history of Colorado given a tribute or honor to the Korean War veterans.
What?
Yeah, none ever. So not only, so I, you know, we kind of went to that a little bit, and so they allowed me to do it, and so I wrote and delivered and gave the first Colorado Korean War resolution that we've ever had, forgotten again, I can tell you that, so.
That's really good. Do we have any final wrap-up questions, or yeah?
I don't know if it's a question, but the way, my way would be, this is gonna be, we'll see. If somebody wants to be transgender, you can pick somebody from the legislature to give up their body parts to the person that wants.
You first.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is, you guys are making a difference, because there are more people, more Republicans who did really well with the Liberty Scorecard this year than has ever been. From 4 last year to, I don't know, 12 this year, that did really well.
Yeah.
And the next thing is, D49 did pass, it said there can't be boys and girls. They did get it through, and now I think they're suing the state because they have to.
It's a federal lawsuit.
And the reason that happened is because citizens stopped waiting on us and just said, we're gonna do it ourselves. Just like the ballot initiative, just like with the ranked choice voting, just like, you know, the party couldn't take it on for whatever reason, have all that whole discussion, but, you know, they took it on, and, I mean, we're a force. And the D49, overcoming that ideology, I can guarantee you.
Huge.
I mean, there are, yes. Jill.
The last one is because you were voted the most based legislator, that's for all of
I found out about this with the libertarians about most based, and I sent it to somebody, and they're like, I'm going to talk to those people right now. It's like, no, based is a good thing. I think it means foundationally based. I sent it to my daughter. She said, okay, you've got fans. It's like, okay, this is a good thing. Because it was Johnny Cash song. So, you know, we're doing great. We're working great with the libertarians.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot in common with the libertarians. Maybe not the weed so much, but you know, everything else we're very aligned. So we just need to pull ourselves together, stop fighting internally, and take the fight together. But yes,
I just wanted
it is 12. You're not going to get the same.
I wanted to make an announcement. On June 22nd, we are doing a girls' sports rally on the west steps of the Denver Capitol. The name of the event is going to be Title IX is Mine. We're going to be encouraging, since D49 did pass their resolution, we are going to be encouraging our girls to stand their ground when they're out there on the field and they have to face a boy. That's what the whole point of this rally is going to be. We are hoping to get more sponsors and speakers. We have Jennifer Say from XXXY Athletics as a sponsor and as a speaker. So please join us June 22nd. The website for the event is 1amediagroup.com/Title IX.
And just real quick, as you know, we've seen kind of an epidemic of this queer theory hitting our community and child drag shows that are taking place. We captured one in particular in Manitou where some very inappropriate behavior happened that I'm not even going to mention. But what is there anything we could do statewide, or that you guys could do, or words of encouragement that you could give to propose some type of ban on something like that?
I think it's kind of the same strategy on all of these things, on guns, on property, is that the people in those chairs need to be replaced. And, because we can propose whatever we want, and there is value in proposing it because it highlights, but the value in proposing it and then having it denied, I mean, the real value there is to educate the population that nothing is gonna change until you change the people in those seats. Now, God can change the people in the seat, change their hearts, that's fantastic, you know, the road to Damascus moment, you know, that would be fantastic. I would love to see that. But until then, we need to work on replacing every single one of them, because they are all 100% in line with the queer theory, with that ideology. That they are 100% committed to it, and they will not entertain anything other than that. So, and feticide, they are 100% in line with feticide. So, you know, the Republican platform is, you know, to uphold the values, promote things, to uphold the values of not the Republican Party, but of the Constitution. I mean, you go back to the original platform, and it is, we are established to promote the values, and those values are that we are created in the image of God, we are endowed with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure those rights, governments are instituted among men, governments, best power, and consent of the governed. We need to stop giving that consent to people who do not represent those values. Now, whether those people are Republicans or Democrats, I mean, I can guarantee you that the Democrats have no use for the Constitution. We need to make sure our Republicans do, but we need to replace the Democrats because they don't.
And we have to be smart in Democrat areas. There's certain areas in Colorado, they're blue. There's nothing we can do about it, they just are. But if we can replace the ones that are in there with Kennedy style, I mean, I'll take a Kennedy style Democrat over what we got in there now. And if we can replace them with this style of Democrat, that people that we can actually work, that want to work with us, you know, then I think that would do us a great service across the entire state of Colorado. I think you'll start seeing things, because really, honestly, the Kennedy style Democrats are kind of like the soft Republicans. But they're blue, and they're so strong blue that, I mean, we don't even have Republicans running in those areas. So why don't we try to help ourselves by at least getting someone that we can work with versus someone who is just gonna just cut us off at the knee every single time, and who will take, and they take over, like certain people like Garcia. She loses that roost, and they do, you know, if one of the people get out of line, they get yelled at. I've seen people get yelled at, you voted wrong, you did, you know, and because some of the freshmen get confused, or they voted the way they thought they should vote for their district. It's not about their district.
I want to say something that, in my neighborhood, I'm pretty well known, in this environment, my neighborhood very well known. Every Democrat in my neighborhood votes for Ken Degraff. Now, I'm going to explain how this works. I point out, he is a man of integrity. He is a statesman. And that resonates. He is not milquetoast. And I tell folks, I don't care if you don't vote for another Republican. That man deserves your vote. Because he stands for something. It resonates. You do not have to compromise your values at all. And I'm telling you, I get phone calls every election cycle. And they agree with me. That's how this works. Just giving you an idea.
That's right.
Sorry.
Before we get going, I know, and people are leaving about, Britt. Our Britta's here.
I'm your state DOT chair. Thank you very much. You voted for me the first time. Thank you very much. You voted for me the second time. So I just want to say, thank you very much. This is awesome. I love being here. I'm glad I was able to stop by. And my only suggestion back to Jim is, even as independent people, if, do you know what's in 537 days? Exactly. So we need everybody to reach out to 500 people. That's one person per day. You have a month, you know, to not do it every day. just reach out when you're at the store, wherever you are, you're at the fire station, whatever you're doing, just reach out to somebody and say something. Do you know about this? Do you know about whatever issue is important to you? I'm not telling you what issue it is, because it's different for you than it's different for me. But they're still all our same issues. If you can just talk to somebody, that's gonna go a long way, and that's a very independent way to do it. You don't have to be a part of the group, don't come to a meeting, just say, now you're in line, and show up, just. Did you hear about that 1312? Did you hear about that law? Hey, did you know in our school district, it matters a lot. This is really Thank you for the time.
Also, on the June 14th, there's a D22 picnic at Village Green Park from 4:30 to 7. Come, I don't care if you're a D22.
Get with me if you want to know more about the girls' sports rally. Thank you.
All right, now my turn. All right, one of the things that was, turned out to be effective this year was this, where I got shut down for this right here, that shall not be infringed, when we were having the debate. So I had some of those made up. That video, I think, went like 2 million or something like that. So that highlighted to the country what we're dealing with here. So if you would like a sticky or something, I have a bunch. If you want to leave a couple bucks, that's great too. But otherwise, if you want to just put one on your water bottle, these I got these because just as a conversation starter with people, they have been a huge conversation starter for me. So I have a stack of them up here. For my gift money, and I also have some pins for. Thank you all for coming.
So yeah, the biggest complaint that you're always going to get with live streams is going to be the sound. That's why I got the sound that I did, because we were doing live streams. Like the sound that I have is